Welcome to Krome Cast. Check it out. I'm Sam Major, Commercial Director of Krome Technologies. On this edition of Krome Cast, we talk about the cyclical nature of IT, specifically HCI and cloud/edge computing. I'm joined once again by Rupert Mills, my co-founder and partner in Krome.
Thanks, Sam.
It's an interesting topic, and I think I'm quite cynical, being frank, about this one. But it's interesting seeing it, and we've often talked about the cyclical nature of IT, people insourcing, outsourcing, what fits the business, new CIO, new brooms, all that sort of stuff. And it's quite interesting to see what's happening right now, particularly, and let's start with the whole cloud approach. There was a big boom with let's put everything in the cloud, and we've talked before and here about cloud's great for certain things, but there was obviously a big push to let's put the noise from the vendors, we don't need to name who, but let's put everything in the cloud because that is the best place for everything. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing some new articles and information coming out around edge computing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's as you say, it's interesting. Everything goes in cycles, and cloud was the big buzzword. And I think that if you take a look at the IT industry as a whole, the big buzzword actually is change, because change generates work, generates progress, and undoubtedly it generates progress. But you've got this challenge that actually change can often be done for change's sake. Our argument's always been, what do you do that's right for the client, right for the customer's business, and what's the right fit for them? So don't do something for the sake of doing it. Yeah. Whereas certainly the whole, put everything into the cloud, everything's in the cloud. Right, let's now talk about how we change that again. Well, that means putting everything back at the edge. Yeah. And what actually the overall discussion around is that some things are great, centralised in a cloud, central services. Some things need to remain at the edge computing, and we come up with this new term, edge computing, which is to move stuff back to on-premise. Absolutely. On-prem, I believe it was called before.
Although started.
Although this time with edge computing, the prem might well be an aeroplane, a smart vehicle, any that sort of thing as well. Yeah. But absolutely, you're talking about what goes back outside of the cloud. I mean, I was talking to a customer this morning on a conference call where their requirement is to move very, very large files around. So they've got all of their data stored in AWS, but are using sync devices that basically store it at each individual location, because to pull a 40, 50 terabyte file out of AWS where you need to work on it and then put it back again isn't exactly practical in terms of AWS bandwidth.
No, the cost of data ingress, egress, all that sort of stuff as well adds up.
And trying to work on it at any speed locally when you've got to pull it down a remote link to start with just isn't practical. So that is an example of edge computing. Everything is in the cloud, but you need it at the edge, and in their case 6 different disparate edges at once. So you've all of a sudden gone back to, how do we move this data be back on site? You're taking new storage like S3 buckets, that sort of stuff, and saying, how do I actually get an S3 bucket to sit on-prem, but not just this site, over there? So previously you'd used some sort of replicated file server technology and just made it move around the edges, and now you're using decentralization technology to bring it back out of the cloud and store it at these different locations. So it's the saying, nothing new under the sun, and it's often right, isn't it, when you look at it in the IT perspective? Yeah,
indeed. I don't want to say emperor's new clothes and that sort of stuff, but there's an element to it. Like you say, there was this huge noise about cloud is right for everything, and we kind of sat back and waited and looked. And it is right. You do look and go, certain things really make sense, and other things don't. But now seeing, and let's not call it backpedaling, because it's not. It's change. It's the evolution of cloud, but it is the realization from the vendors having to now say, actually, perhaps here isn't the best place for everything. So here is now your solution to actually manage this data back out at the edge, on-prem.
And what it's brought with it is things like containerization that was driven forwards by cloud technologies and what people are doing there. That's moved stuff on another level, and now people are saying, well, if you've got that container centrally, you put that container at the edge, and actually you end up with the data sitting out the edge. It's the progress thing. The change drives the progress, but it's not always right, as you said, to say one size fits all. It certainly isn't. Yeah, and Emperor's New Clothes fits the HCI model a bit more.
Well, we can talk about that, because that's I've never been backward in coming forward on my opinion on HCI. I've discussed it with and I won't name vendors, but pretty much all the vendors have a HCI offering. And there's always been a lot of noise about how it's far more scalable, it's more stable, it's cheaper, there's a lower TCO, you'll improve your ROI, all this sort of stuff. Personally, from a commercial perspective, I have never spec'd a solution up in comparison to a more traditional 321, 421, 521 kind of server switch storage architecture that has come close to matching up commercially.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at that, I think if you get into some sort of hyperscale and you move right the way up the ecosystem, so you're an AWS, you're a Google, you're a Microsoft, you're running some massive footprint, or even in a smaller environment, you're saying, okay, we've got 10,000 users and they're all using VDI.
VDI, for instance, yeah.
VDI is a really good use case for HCI. It's like, okay, you want to add another 500 users, you add another node of the HCI appliance, away it goes and scales up really easy.
Yep.
But to say it's the be-all and end-all replacement for everything,
it's been pushed as the panacea.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's the use, whatever your use case is, you could use HCI to manage it, and I fundamentally disagree with that. Like you said, there are definite use cases. Same with cloud. There's use cases for cloud. There's use cases for HCI.
Yeah.
I just irks me slightly when it becomes, oh, this, like I say, is the panacea. It's the answer to all your woes, and it simply isn't. I think it's lazy and not taking into consideration what is best for a particular customer and their use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. You get, if things scale in a linear fashion, so you get the scaling of disk, compute, and RAM, all scaling in a linear fashion, great. If they don't, you suddenly get out to what HP are calling HCI 2.0,
Yes.
And you start saying actually they're calling it disaggregated HCI, which essentially means taking the software that controls all the HCI stuff on the top of it and sticking it on a more traditional architecture of let's have some storage, let's have some servers with CPU and RAM, and then let's actually look at how we can manage those much more like a traditional infrastructure.
Yeah, with the flexibility that had.
With the flexibility that had. So actually you need 3 petabytes of storage, but you don't really need much in the way of compute.
Yeah.
Well, don't go and buy a ton of compute you don't need. Or you need a load of compute, but actually you don't need much storage.
Yeah.
Well, buy that. But doing that in that more flexible fashion is something that people almost shied away from because of this HCI message, that actually the whole HCI 2.0 message is starting to say, maybe there was something right about that. Maybe it's not always cheaper to HP's own website, as you said to me.
It does literally quotes now that it isn't necessarily the cheapest way of doing it, and that was a big push, and not just HP, for all the vendors that we talked to, that it was commercially it was one up, it was going to be cheaper, etc. And they can run through all different calculators why, but I've run it from a client's perspective when they're investing, what they're doing with it, and I've never seen it stack up unless, like you say, you go super big scale and a very specific use case, then potentially. But for general workloads, it doesn't work. But they've obviously realised this now, the disaggregated approach, and let's let you have the ability to, if you need more compute, add a bit more compute, you need more RAM, put some more RAM or some more storage, scale out your SAM. But that sounds very much to me like a 321 with some clever software, which again goes back to just simply progress.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that, it's progress. And this change drives progress. I've said that already so far in this podcast, but yeah, that change is driving things. It's just the spin on it to try and make you adopt that change when you don't necessarily need that change. What you need is what that change will bring further down the line. The more manageable environments, ease of use, etc. That's been a great thing going forwards. I mean, virtualization, you go back some years, virtualization brought that forwards a massive leap, containerization now. All those various different things are moving IT environments forwards on a regular basis. It's just interesting that from a vendor perspective, it's what's the current hot topic, and let's get out and push that. And certainly, as we've discussed, our view has always been, what's the current right fit for our client, not what's the hot topic, and let's try and force that into every hole.
Yeah, the square peg the round hole type stuff.
Yeah.
You can't blame vendors, I suppose. They are indeed something, they've got to make their money back, so they're going to push that. I suppose you have to take that messaging with a pinch of salt. And I say, I'm just probably far too cynical, haven't done this far too long, but you become that way, especially when you see that messaging over and over, and you just have to step back, like you say, and actually work out what is the use case for this technology. Am I dealing with one that it does fit or not, and will I be dragged into that new world? And it's just interesting, the cyclical nature of it. Like you say, it was cloud back to on-prem, it was HCI building blocks that make it all really easy, but now you can have different sized building blocks with attached storage and all that sort of thing, and around we go.
Go back years, and as I said, it's where we all came from. You should go all the way back to mainframe days. Mainframe, dumb terminals on site, everything centralised. Yeah. Actually, you can do this far better if you put all the stuff that the people who are using it out on the edge with the people who are using it. Great. Cloud, let's put it all back to the centre again. Edge compute, let's put it all back out there again. And it will just go round in a big circle. It's the way of the world.
Yeah. It's technology, or which driving this? Is it marketing or is it technology?
I think it's technology innovation. So if you think about mainframe technology, the user interface was very low traffic. Basically, you've got a green screen with text on it. It's very low traffic going back and forth, so it could operate over the very low speed links at the time. So then you get technological advances in what the end user wants from a user interface. So you move on to GUI interfaces, that sort of stuff, and it all pushes out to the edge because it's very difficult to deliver over the comms and the sort of wet piece of string type backbone that you had in those days.
Indeed, yeah.
The internet has driven forwards. There's fibre in the ground. I mean, I've got a 300 meg connection at home. It's like
And we're all now using things like Azure. Yeah, the Azure desktop, Azure VDI, isn't it?
Azure VDI, absolutely.
So
all
that's
of
kind
those.
of almost going back to a mainframe. Kind of,
So you pull that all back central, and everybody goes, great. I can now have that same experience, but centralise it. That makes the management easier. Yeah. But then you get to the point of okay, everything's moved on to now. You've got 8K screens at home. You've got, gaming companies developing for 8K games, etc. Actually, the files that need to render to move that sort of data around, etc., become huge again. Yeah. So actually, I've now got a 1 gig or even a 10 gig pipe into my data center. Still doesn't cut it when you've got a 30, 40, 50 terabyte file you need to move around. You've got to, because that's a long time to drag it down. So then you're saying, well, put all the data back at the edge again. And at some point, the advances will come. 5G is going to move things on a massive step again.
And 6G after that, even faster. Yeah.
But 5G wireless connectivity will just move things forward again, and that makes cloud stuff easier.
So, back into the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the overall message from us is that certainly what's right for you, what's right for your business, what's right for your purpose, and what are you trying to achieve. And the most important thing that, you and I have been doing this a long time now, go into a meeting with a customer, what do you need, what are you looking to achieve, and how do we achieve that with the best technologies that are on the marketplace? Not, I've got this in my kit bag, can I introduce you one of these because it's shiny, Mr. Customer.
See it all too often.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we should probably cover off, one of the, obviously, there's great subject matter here, and just teeing up for one of the future episodes we're doing is actually drilling in some of the tool sets and doing a technical demo of some of the stuff that we use to actually do that right sizing. So looking at people's data lakes and in the cloud and all that sort of stuff, and actually working out, is that in the right shaped solution, and how do we actually show people how we make those decisions as to where it should be, and give them the best advice.
Yeah, and that's certainly something we're focusing on as an organisation. Not only are you in the cloud, are you in the right cloud? There's the different choices of them. There's lots of people, a big buzzword is multi-cloud. Lots of different cloud environments. We've got customers in the big three, GCP, AWS and Azure. We've got customers in all three. And actually it's what's the right size and what's the right place to put that. Do some analysis on it, because actually sometimes you find that you can make a huge cost saving just by changing the actual technology within that cloud platform you're using, or you could potentially deliver it in a different cloud platform that you already got a relationship with. It could be regulatory, it could be we can't put it there because they don't have the footprint where we need it, but we can put it in this cloud over there because it needs to sit in Germany or inside the EU, or actually it's got to stay in the US, whatever it might be. It's that same thing, fit for purpose again.
Yeah. So we haven't specifically gone into the tool sets that we use today. That will be for a future episode. But if you can give me just a few points on the sort of things we look at and analyse when we're using those tools. Yeah,
sure. So you're looking at the various different data going in, data going out of a system. You've got the traditional, how much IOPS in terms of disk output do you need, CPU, RAM requirements, regulatory requirements, as I said, locatory requirements. It's basically, there's a whole different set of things you can look at, and then you can, with the various tools that are available in the market now, you can plug all those features into it, and it can give you the outputs of where you need to do, and even some of them can move it around for you. Some of them can say, actually, I'm going to move that automatically from over there to over there because it's better running in that environment. So automation on that scale, it comes back to the HCI thing we're talking about. It's not right for every purpose. If you run a small 50-person business that is doing something that's fairly fixed, then what you want is a fairly static solution in all likelihood. On the other hand, if you are a large global player in a particular marketplace and you need to be able to scale your business up and down all the time, then there's a reason to use tools to do that. But actually just doing the analysis up front and finding what's fit for purpose is something, as you said, we're going to go into in a future podcast and pull out some of those tools, show you how they work and show you what we can do for you.
Yeah, that I'm really looking forward to.
Cool.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
That's been good again.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of Krome Cast. Check it out. If there's anything you'd like to cover on future episodes, then please do leave that in the comment section below. And remember to like, subscribe and share. And join us again next time on Krome Cast. Check it out.